Welcome to the Power of Purity podcast, the show that empowers men to experience their sexual gift in a healthier way. Now here's your host, Tony Ingracia.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Power of Purity podcast. I appreciate you being with me today. And before we jump into today's podcast episode, I wanted to take a moment to extend an opportunity to our Power of Purity family that I'm very, very excited about, and that is that I am going to be leading a trip to Israel this next year in February of 2020. It's going to be a 12-day trip, 1 day of travel on each end, and 10 full days in Israel. And we're going to see all the significant sites in Israel during these 10 days. Among many others, we're going to visit Jerusalem, the Mount of Olives, the Garden of Gethsemane, Bethlehem, the Temple Mount, the Wailing Wall, the Dead Sea, Calvary, the Garden Tomb where Jesus was buried and resurrected, Jericho, the Jordan River, the Sea of Galilee, Capernaum, Cana of Galilee where Jesus turned the water into wine, Nazareth, and Mount Carmel. Mount Carmel, of course, is where the prophet Elijah faced off with over 400 prophets of Baal, and was an incredible story from the Bible. Anyway, it's going to be an amazing trip, and I have been working on this trip literally for months, putting it together, investigating, pricing, and all kinds of things. And the trip is going to be $4,170 per person. And that might sound like a lot, but believe me, guys, that is a tremendous value for what we're going to be getting. And I've worked on this, as I said, and I've discovered that many trips to Israel are over $5,000, and that's for a 9-day trip instead of a 12-day trip. So this really is going to be an awesome trip, and it's going to be a turnkey trip because it includes everything: airfare from St. Louis, hotels, all transportation, meals, an air-conditioned tour bus, and a private tour guide, transfers, fees, admissions to the different sites we're going to see, everything included. So it's going to be a fantastic trip. I wanted to extend this to the Power of Purity family. If anybody's interested, please feel free to contact me. You can go to the Power of Purity website, and there's a link at the top of the page. It says Israel Trip. If you click on that link, you can see the full 12-day itinerary. And then if you're interested for further information, there's contact information there. You can contact me directly, and I will get to you a 6-page information packet so you can have all the information you need to know about this. But the trip is February 16th to the 27th, 2020. It's going to be a great trip, and I would absolutely love to meet you and have you join us on this exciting trip to Israel. So God bless you as you consider this and pray about it. And with that being said, let's jump right into today's episode. God bless you. Hey guys, welcome back to the Power of Purity podcast. And if you're like me, you've been anticipating today's podcast because if you've been listening the past couple weeks, you know that I've been interviewing Charlotte, who is a co-leader with me at the Power of Purity. She leads our women's group that meets every week, our women's support group. It's called Willow Tree. And Charlotte has been sharing her story with us as we continue today with part 3 of her story. So let me start by just saying hi and welcome back, Charlotte.
Hi, thanks, Tony. Good to be here again.
And when we left off, Charlotte, last week, I'm remembering that you and your husband had been in a place where you had gone through this cycle with his use of pornography, but you came to this place where he was doing a lot better for about 4 or 5 years, and that was a great blessing. And he had a heart to go into ministry full time. And so you guys went to seminary. And it was while you were in seminary that you were having some suspicions. And then one night you discovered that he had been using pornography on the internet again very extensively. You said hundreds and hundreds of websites that he had been involved with. And so you confronted him. He was angry. He was unwilling to really talk about it or do anything about it. You didn't know what to do. And you're just continuing forward in your life. You're married to this man who has this issue. He won't admit it. He won't deal with it. He won't talk to you about it. You don't know what to do. And so where do we go from this point in your story?
Yeah. So, good summary, Tony. So the other thing to mention that I think is pretty powerful in here is he was having these emotional affairs and investing a lot of financial means.
Yes.
And the reason that's so important is not long after that, we both lost our jobs. And I had an intense amount of anger to deal with, knowing that what I thought was struggling financially, believing he had given so much money to these women. And I'm like, oh my goodness, here we are. And you have just thrown our financial means to these women, and
right.
now we struggle.
Talk about adding insult to injury. It's bad enough you're involved with pornography. It's bad enough it escalates to emotional involvements and probably physical involvements with other women, but even financial implications for our family and our own future.
Right. So what I found out not long after he had lost his job in January, we actually get a knock on the door, and he's being investigated by some wrongful handling with his previous employer financially.
Wow.
So there was some pornography addiction that was acting out at work, and they were looking at processing online pornography.
So there's an implication of the possibility of like legal action here.
Exactly.
Wow.
Right. So the financial pressures of losing employment, him being investigated. On top of that, I had shared in confidence with some friends at church at this point. And what I thought were safe people were not safe people. And they had emailed some of the leadership at church, and half of it was truths, half of it was lies, and so everything was just blowing out of the water at this point.
Wow.
Stepped out to what I thought was safe was not safe. So I don't feel safe at home. I don't feel safe at my church. Lost my job. It's all feel like it's falling apart. My marriage is falling apart. It's just not going well. So we're really just both just trying to keep our head above water. And he was doing a great job because he was spinning out of control at wooing me, though, to keep him on his side, which is not hard for me to do because, again, I'm a natural rescuer. So when things start getting hot and the church start asking a lot of hard questions, because he was in leadership, I was in leadership, they need to know really what's going on here. I rise to the occasion. And rising to this occasion means I'm going to rescue this man. It doesn't matter what he's done. Just like my alcoholic father that was violent. I'm going to rescue this man.
So you're willing to forgive him? You're willing to work with him?
Absolutely. I'm willing to defend him. Absolutely. Yeah. So, needless to say, when I discovered that Ken had been acting out and he was in despair, his sexual addiction really ramped up now. I thought and so we can see each time it just gets deeper and deeper. And because he lost his job, he's sinking lower and lower. And I get a job not long after that. I remember there was one day I came home and I went for work, left for work, and I forgot something in the house. And I went back inside, and walked into the office, and I had been gone maybe 5 minutes, and he's already in front of the computer masturbating.
Wow.
And I felt absolutely devastated. I'm thinking, I'm going to work, and you're just sinking lower and lower.
Did you say something to him?
I did. I said, "What are you doing?" Of course, it was a lie. It's just like, oh, I just went to the bathroom and came back, and I just forgot to put my pants on. I'm like, no, you didn't. And, but it was evident that it was, that his addiction was getting worse. And so.
I can't imagine what you did with that, Charlotte. I mean, did you feel angry? Did you rage? Did you yell at him? Did you cuss him? Did you call him an idiot? I mean, what would you do with these moments?
I was
just stuff it down?
Well, no. I mean, I was honest with him. I would tell him how upset and how hurt I was. But when there's only one party that will participate, you just really start withdrawing. It didn't matter, how hurt I was. He didn't care how hurt I was. There was a lie or a justification, or I soon and quickly realized it was more beneficial at the time just to go to work. At least I could right. Do something at work. So, I can't do anything here.
I understand.
He won't participate with me.
So it almost feels like you're just in this place where you're almost living two separate lives, and you peer in and you catch him once in a while. You see what he's doing. You know who he is. You know what he's doing. It affirms to you what he's doing, but there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm picturing the metaphor of railroad tracks in my mind's eye right now. You know how there's two tracks, and they run parallel, and they keep going for a long, long way. So almost like your lives are almost side by side, connected in a way, but not really together. Mm-hmm. You're just kind of running parallel to this man at this point.
Yeah. Well, to add to that visual, I've thought of that visual before. And what happens is when you see these railroad tracks that are parallel, if you look at railroad tracks that are flat, not on a hill, but because I grew up next to railroad tracks. If you look at them running straight down a flat way, eventually far down, you only see one. You don't see both of them parallel anymore.
Yes.
They merge. So that's exactly what happens. Is you as a wife just become almost a singleness. All you can do is figure out what you can do, whether it's what can I do? He won't cooperate with me. I can go to work. I can take care of the kids. I can't handle the emotion of the trauma. So you start withdrawing and stuffing all of this trauma so that you can, especially when you are raising children. I think when you're raising children and just trying to keep your head above water. So I become that single track. No longer are we two tracks, even running together. I become a single track.
Wow. Okay. That's powerful. It feels very lonely.
It was very lonely. Very lonely. So at this point, I'm really close to just ending the marriage because I think he's not going to work with me.
You're having thoughts of giving up.
I am. I'm having thoughts of giving up at this point. So I told him that. I said, look, we're going to have to do something. This isn't obviously working. So we went to a counselor, and this particular counselor was a member of our church. And we went to him for a period of time. And Ken, what he told me one day coming home from the counselor's appointment, he said, I'm not going back. He's all on your side. I'm not going back. And I think what was really happening at the time, Tony, is he was starting to get to a route that Ken did not want to deal with. He didn't want to go there. He wasn't ready to go there.
Wow.
And I think he was getting close. And so I don't believe it was, oh, he's on your side. I think it was starting to get, scrape the surface, just starting to scrape a little bit of that, of his deep issues that he had never even, at this point, had not even shared with me.
Wow.
So,
that must have been very discouraging for you. There's a little hope here. We're going to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe finally we can deal with some things, work through some things. And here he wants to circumvent the process, hit the eject button, and I don't want to go to counseling anymore.
I don't want to go to counseling anymore. So I couldn't make him. So, what he did, though, is he made some promises to me. We had made a little progress in the counseling, and he had made some promises to me, and I wanted to believe his promises. I said, okay, we'll see how far we get in this. And we did for a little while. So even though there had been years in between discovery, of periods of discovery, each time he would get better at hiding it, is what I found. So if you think about when we were dating, he hardly had anything. It didn't take me long to find it. When not long after we were married, and I found images, I had mentioned he printed them and he would just leave them laying around, easy to find. Now, 10 years into the marriage, and he's hiding things well. They're not easy to find. And so each time, though, I caught him, I felt like I would just perish. I was just perishing inside. There was like little left of me. I was just shriveling up emotionally. My respect for him was dying. What I came to find out is we were both hiding. And once I realized that we were both hiding and we were both not facing the truth, mine I had mentioned before was pride, shame, like I was owning his shame. Deep down, I felt like people would judge me. Like, well, why wouldn't your husband, why would he feel that way?
Right.
Why would he do that?
Which maybe is your own shame. In other words, what kind of woman are you? What kind of wife are you that you can't even keep your own husband happy? He's got to go to porn to be happy, to get satisfied. You must not be taking care of your husband. You're not a very good wife. So you're assuming these responsibilities and internalizing your own shame around all of this.
Right. So, exactly. And the gaslighting had gotten so extreme where he was placing that on me. He was placing the blame on me, that I was starting to think, okay, this is me. I do, I am starting to deserve this.
You were confused by it.
I was very confused. The gaslighting had become so extreme because he would be so upset when I would discover, not want to talk about it. It would all be my fault.
Right.
I was starting to believe it.
Wow.
I was starting to believe I wasn't worthy of his love. I wasn't worthy. I was becoming so unworthy of anyone's love at that point. After all, I was the one that I knew little about his past. I knew little about his childhood or his private past. I was the one that came from a troubled home. So I was the baggage here. And I believed it. I'm like, I'm the only damaged one here. It's got to be me. So I spent those years trying to change me. Okay, if I do this differently, if I pursue him more, if I keep the house, if I do all of these things, then he'll change.
Somehow you have the power to change him. If you're a better wife, maybe if you're thinner, if you're prettier, if the house is cleaner, if you cook better, if you try harder, if you work harder, then he won't have this problem anymore.
Right. So then that became my approach. Let's approach it that way. Problem is every plan I came up with, he was never on board with my plan. And so the pain just became really deep. So each time I would just move on. I'd say, okay, we'll just keep moving forward. We'll just move on. So I kept this great secret to myself because I didn't want anyone to hold me accountable. I didn't want to change his dance. I didn't want to face my fears. And obviously all of my fears were in the driver's seat. And I thought if I just suppress all of those, it'll be okay.
And
we'll just keep doing life.
That's what you mean by the statement that you were both hiding.
We were both hiding.
You were hiding. You were hiding from the truth.
Right.
You were hiding from the consequences that would unfold if you called him on it. If you did anything about it, you didn't want to face any of that.
Yeah, if I made any movement at all, I had fear of what was going to happen. And that would be a loss of another marriage, another failure, him getting angry. I mean, many fears.
Right. No doubt you were thinking of your children. And so you're deciding at this point, I'm going to deal with this by not dealing with this.
Exactly.
I'm going to use the ostrich technique.
Right. So that was my hiding. And his hiding was obviously, hiding and lying and going to seminary, doing ministry work.
Right.
So there was a night that really stands out that just really changed everything. We were about 15 years into our marriage at this point, and I got up in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep. And so since Ken had been in seminary and he had also gone through a doctoral psychology program, we had an amazing library. So I remember I got up in the middle of the night because I couldn't sleep.
Wait a minute. Does he have a doctorate degree at this point?
Not yet.
Okay, he's working on his doctorate.
He's working on his doctorate at this point. And so...
In psychology.
Psychology.
Okay.
Okay. So we have this amazing library in our office, and I remember getting up. I went to the office, and I just looked at it, and I thought, I just really need some answers. And I pulled this book off the shelf, and it was just pulled it off. And I remember I sat there with this book, and it was on counseling and addictions. And I remember sitting down and I prayed and I just thought, Lord, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore. Just show me something. And I remember I opened the book and I turned to this page and these words just jumped out at me. And it said, spouses of sex addicts are the loneliest people.
Wow.
And I thought, that's me. And it hit me at that point in time. I had hundreds of friends because I was in the ministry. I was in women's ministry. I was in leadership in women's ministry. And even though I had all these people surrounding me, I felt a love by these people. I felt I had some connections, but I was so lonely. I was so lonely in my life. I was emotionally lonely, I was physically lonely, and I was attempting to protect myself and my husband. And I realized at that point, I had often when I'm asked, why did I stay? And part of it was I was over-spiritualizing it as well. The problem, it was the desires of my heart to believe that I could do it. I could do all the work. If I just did all of the work, this will be okay. This was such a defining time because I wanted to believe this man could overcome this, and I have this belief that he could, but by me doing all the work,
right.
Not by him doing the work.
Can I ask? The 12 steps of recovery, step number 1 says something to the effect of, I came to the place where I was willing to admit that my life has become unmanageable. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think either you or Ken had come to step 1 yet. You were still fighting and fighting and fighting, trying to make life work, trying to make this marriage work. Like, both of you were unwilling to admit that this thing is unmanageable.
Exactly.
Is this the night that it occurs to you for the first time that he is an addict? That word addiction? The spouse of a sex addict is the loneliest person. Did you realize that he had an addiction at this point?
I think that I hadn't defined anything for him or me at this point.
You didn't even understand. He certainly wasn't admitting that he had a problem or an addiction. And you weren't even understanding really that he had an addiction.
I hadn't defined anything for he or I.
Okay.
Right. This is where it gave definition, where it changed my life.
You're starting to understand
that it just spoke directly to my heart that, wow, I am so lonely in this. I hadn't taken the time to really see the true impact that it was making on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is it. I've got to make change. This is it.
Like something shifted
in me.
In your heart that night.
It did.
Praise be to God. Maybe that was a gift.
Yeah. Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
And how would you put words to it? What was it that shifted in your heart? You were finding a motivation that it can't go on like this. Like, it can't be like this anymore. Like, this has to change one way or the other. Like,
right. Well, because I was suppressing intense pain. I mean, it was intensely painful just to go to bed with him at night. Just feeling I was laying next to someone that I was so rejected by.
Right. The metaphor that I picture when you say that, if you take a big beach ball, and imagine in this metaphor, the beach ball is bad. It's a problem. It's difficult. It's pain. It's trauma. It's confusing. It's fear. It's disorientation. And I don't want this beach ball in my life. And you're in the swimming pool. So you decide to push the beach ball down. I'll push it under the water and hold it there. Then it's out of sight. It's not really here. That's the ostrich technique. Mm-hmm. But how does that work out? How long can you hold? It feels like you were trying to hold it down for so long. You didn't want this to be the problem that it was. So you were trying to keep it submerged somehow. And it feels like the ball is pushing up now. You can't hold it down anymore. And
that's an interesting metaphor that you use that right now, Tony, because I literally said out loud that night, and I'm not certain why, but I literally said when I read that, this is it. It's time to blow it out of the water.
Wow, no kidding.
And everything changes now. It's time to deal with this and address it for me. My hope and prayer is that we were, but I knew I had to. I knew I had to for me.
Yes. Okay. Can I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
Because I feel an unction from the Holy Spirit. I want to say something to our audience. This is a poignant moment in Charlotte's story. It's significant. And I just want to say that there is a listener. There's someone listening to this podcast, and you understand this moment because you have been trying to hold the beach ball down. Your dilemma, your situation, your marriage, the addiction, the problem, whatever it is, I don't know. And you're realizing in this moment today through Charlotte's story, it cannot go on anymore. It cannot go on like this. I have to deal with this. I have to blow it out of the water. It's like time to get radically honest, more honest than you've ever been. It's time to deal with this. You can't keep pretending like it isn't there, or that maybe it'll change, or maybe it'll go away, or... Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I just bless you in Jesus' name. I ask for God's blessing over you if you're in a place where you're coming face to face with something and you are realizing that it's time to deal with this. It's time for change. This is it. So now I said that, so Charlotte, can you continue?
Yeah. So in 2012, Ken's elderly mother, 90 years old, came and lived with us. And this became where things were really spinning out of control. I'm dealing with, I'm seeing a counselor on my own because I had decided I have to take care of myself. I've got to start working on myself. If if he's not going to join me, I at least have to address myself. So as I'm getting healthier, setting boundaries, he can start seeing some shifts in me. And in that, I start asking things of him. I had never asked things of him before. I started asking things of him like, will you go to counseling with me? Will you explore what's happening in your life? I was taking an approach that I had never taken before. So he did. He agreed that he would start going to counseling with me. And but what I didn't know is he was acting out daily at this point. It had gone where we knew it was years before. He had his mother in the house doing some of his work, which I think, again, he just started scratching it again with this counselor that we were seeing. A lot of his addiction had come from the relationship he had had with his mother, which was, and we have this woman living in our house.
Wow.
So,
so that agitated him, stirred up root issues, and he's acting out daily more than ever before.
Yeah. So, I had found out, he's acting out daily at this point. He's not working. He's acting out daily. Has his mom in the house. His mom has Alzheimer's, and she's acting like a spoiled child. So I have him acting out. I have his mom that's throwing fits and rages. And I remember one time I went to my closet. I felt like I had no privacy even in the house with everybody acting out. I remember going to my closet one time and I said, I think I'm going crazy. I think I'm going crazy. So I remember he had taken his mom to a doctor's appointment and my computer wasn't working. We shared an office, a home office. My computer wasn't working, and I went over to his computer just to use it, and something came up. So at this point, because I'm getting healthier, I had already started laying down investigating. No more investigating. I thought, that's it. That takes me down a road that I don't need to take myself. And I just felt like at that point in my time in my life that if there was something I needed to know, the Lord would reveal it to me. But all it did was create that false safety for me. But because I had gotten on his computer because mine wasn't working, I had discovered once again just a tremendous amount of daily acting out, pornography and dating websites. And the websites had become very erotic and discussions with women and physical acting out, emotionally acting out. And I thought, okay, I'm in a much better place. I'm in a healthier place. I think I'm done. I think this is it. I think I'm done. And so he called me on the way home from taking his mom to the doctor, and he could hear my voice. Something was wrong. And he said, what's wrong? And I said, I can't talk to you about it now, but when you get home, I think we should go somewhere privately. Bring your mom home. Let's go somewhere privately, and we'll go to the park and talk. So we went, and I shared my discovery, and for the first time, I saw he was like horrified. And he was literally, I could tell he was sick. Like the color in his face had even changed. He has a fairly dark skin, and it changed to white.
But is this because he was caught? He had been caught so many times before this. Or is it because he's detecting the difference in you and he's sensing, oh my God, she's not going to play this game anymore. Like this woman's getting ready to leave me.
Right.
That's what was upsetting him. Not the fact that he got caught, not the fact that he has a problem, but the fact that you might leave me now.
Right. Because he could see I was getting healthier, that she might actually do something now.
Right.
So,
I'm not sure, but I feel like our listening audience that there's people all around, thousands of people in cars and kitchens and taking walks and listening to this in their head, and they're cheering and clapping. They're rooting for Charlotte at this point. Finally, yes, Charlotte, do something.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, I don't know if I'm going to stay in this marriage or not. And but I told him, I said, I'll give you 30 days. And I said, because he was begging me. At that point, he had never begged me. He had never, but I think that was just it. He was seeing I was getting healthier.
Yeah.
I had some boundaries set. He could see I was calm. I wasn't attacking him. And I was responding in a way he had never seen before. And he said, I need you to do this with me. And I said, I don't know if I can do this with you, but I will give you 30 days and I'll watch and see what you do in 30 days.
Stop right there, because we are at the end of today's episode. We're a few minutes over, so we need to wrap up today's episode, and I feel like it's a very poignant place to stop. You give him 30 days. And guys, if you want to know where we go from here in Charlotte's story, you're going to have to come back next week. So I invite you to do so. For part 4 of Charlotte's story next week, we will continue. In the meantime, have a great week. Have a great day. Be blessed. In Jesus' name, go forward with God. And I'll look forward to seeing you then. Bye-bye now.
Thanks for listening. Visit powerofpurity.org for more resources and information. And if this podcast has been helpful or encouraging, please invite a friend to listen. Until next time, remember, there's power in purity.